I really spent $500,000 on the house with granny. I'm really out here dancing, I'm really not romantic. I really got that patty. Hey, I really know it's Eddie.
Yo, what's up, man? We're back. It's first smoke of the day. It's episode 44, and we're here at the Fresh Trees Art Gallery in downtown LA. I'm Pat Gods, with my co-host Blackleaf. We got a super special guest in the building today, a big dog, Josh from Nature. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Man, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Cody and Lance. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Big fan.
Get into it, man. You got a lot of history.
A lot of history, but at the end of the day, a lot of it, as far as cannabis, came back to just smoking. Like, you know, my parents are hearing a lot of these stories in the last, 10 years that I kept to the chest a long time, but started smoking in the Bay Area, from the Bay Area, born and raised at a really young age. And I was fortunate to be in a place where when I was 16 years old in high school in 1996, and we were passing Proposition 215 was in the runnings for California. I was able to even do a project on it in class in high schools. And I was already that kid, in 1996. So very fortunate and blessed and able to get my Prop 215 letter when I was 18 and really using the California NORML list of dispensaries or collectives from, I think at one point it was Canada, Washington, Hawaii, Oregon, and California, a list of all the places that you could, as a medical patient, go to, using that as like a doctrine or a playbook to really just learn more about what was happening in the cannabis world.
And this is on online or on the back of High Times? Where
So at one point, California NORML was just California CANormal.org. A list, it was just a list, and you would go on there and you would see, all the active collectives with their addresses and a way of contacting them. I'll get into it later. That's how, when we started a collective in LA, we put ourselves on this list. You had Overgrow, you had IC Mag, you had a couple websites that you could really, get to the people with, but it was very limited. And we were also trying to be very hush hush.
Yeah, those days were different.
you had to be.
You
had to be.
So that was in 96 that you got your Prop 215.
98. When I turned
Okay,
18, it was one of the first things I did.
Bring it back a little bit. What was your first time smoking weed?
First time smoking weed was with some friends, older brother and the friends. I had never smoked a cigarette in my life. I barely even drank till I was in my early 20s. So I never had any smoke in my throat. And I remember I even like yacked a little bit, like when I took my first puff, and it was super embarrassing. I was not even 13 years old with all of my friends' older brother, the older brother and all their friends. And I was teased when I got in as a freshman into high school by these older kids for, being the kid that threw up when he smoked the first time. But it was good weed. It was seedless, like good weed, I think at the time from Mendocino or Sonoma, some sun grown or whatnot, that the older brothers were getting. But at that time, when we were 13, 14, the only way of getting weed for us, because I didn't have too many connects, was taking a train from where we were down in Burlingame up to San Francisco, getting on a bus, going to Haight Street and buying sacks, off the side of the street on Haight Street, Haight-Ashbury, Golden Gate Park. Got ripped off a couple times too. And then when we hit a certain age, we'd slowly meet people that would have, the some brick, and then good stuff would come.
That's crazy. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of it was before Beasters got really big. There was a lot of, at the beginning you'd get a little bit of Mexican, like seeded brick weed a little bit when you were younger. Then eventually when we discovered, seedless, good quality, which was normally either some really rare indoor that we'd get from like Tahoe. There was cat piss out of Tahoe that we were getting in high school that was, I can't find anything like it today. Really airy, loose buds, probably also because they didn't have CO2 or whatever in the grow rooms or whatnot at that time, but really dank ammonia smelling cat piss that I haven't smelled. There's a couple of those strains from like the 97 to 2000 era, Northern California in particular, that I haven't seen these genetics since, that I miss. The Blue Dots. There was a strain called Blue Dot in the Bay Area that was like a blueberry focused strain, super frosty, which was actually the first branded cannabis I ever saw in my life at the Compassionate Caregivers, which was a dispensary chain that had, I think at one point, like 6 shops. They had Blue Dot. It was by a group called they called themselves Pharmacy Blue Dot. And it was a $60 little tin of Blue Dot. That was the first time I saw
Nice.
like a branded jar or tin of cannabis. I think that was 98.
And how old are you? This is a few years after you started smoking now.
Yeah, no, this was about 5 years after smoking. At the time when we were smoking, we were just smoking what we got, and a lot of it was 20 sacks. A lot of it is if you had $60, you'd go to a friend and he'd say, "I don't have any eighths. Take 3 20s," which were probably 0.8s. And I never really sold. I never dealt weed at that time. I only had it to give to my friends, so I would pay less for myself or whatnot. I joked about it that when I was like 22, 23 with the collective, that was like the first time that I really started like legally moving cannabis at all for, medical patients and whatnot. But like I made sure it was in a somewhat legal setting, as legal as possible at that time.
Yeah, and that's the beginnings too. So everybody's kind of figuring it out. It's crazy coming from the Bay Area and all that history. I mean, you laid some on us before the show, just some interesting stuff about area where you come from. What was it like, going to high school during that time? Was this the late 90s?
It was the late 90s. I was really fortunate. I'll use that word a lot because my dad and mom, I come from a great family. My dad came from a really poor family. He was born in 1947 in Israel, but it wasn't Israel yet. It was Palestine. He came over after the 6-Day War, which was in 1967. He was wounded. It's a long story how he came to America through my aunt in Northern Ireland and my uncle, who had lived in San Francisco at the time. Came from Israel to America. My uncle came to America with maybe $200, $300 in his pocket. My dad probably came with 500. Came from families that were really poor. My mom, on the other hand, single child from San Francisco. Father and mother also, father was an immigrant, but worked really hard, and they were a little bit more well off. They had a grocery store. He was a boxing agent for boxers, I think, or doing some kind of promotions for fights. My father came from Israel to San Francisco, started from nothing with my uncle. My uncle at the time in 67 had an ice cream shop. But he eventually, didn't make money with the ice cream shop, but he was kind of a really social guy. Him and my dad together are just magical. Eventually became a baker. And in the 80s, my uncle invented an American truffle, which is a specific shape of a truffle. So he was already doing some amazing things with chocolate. He had a 25,000 square foot factory in Hunters Point, part of San Francisco, which was really dangerous at the time. It was near Candlestick Park, but I grew up as a little kid seeing him with I think it was 100 employees, white lab coats, making like hundreds of thousands of these truffles and sculptures out of chocolate. The whole city knew him. We'd go to all these restaurants. My father was a restaurateur as well, but my uncle would show up with chocolates, and the top restaurants would have the tables waiting for you and whatnot. So I was fortunate in that sense of really being able to see a lot, do a lot in San Francisco, always being able to say I'm the nephew of Joseph Schmidt at that time was a really big thing. But I would use that list that I talked about earlier and really start visiting the shops. And some of my great friends that I grew up with, particular 2 guys, one Bosco and one was named Brad, we would start finding ways to creatively vend to these stores. So what we did, and this was all part of being in the Bay Area, we found this group that grew a bunch of Trainwreck in the Central Valley, and they were selling sun-grown Trainwreck at the time. And we asked them about where all their trim was going, and they didn't even know what to do with it. They were a Hmong Lao family, and I think it was Stockton. And they're like, you want it? Like, we're getting it for free. Eventually they caught on. They were selling it for a little bit, but you would show up to this apartment complex, and they would, the whole apartment complex would be the same family. And they would bag by bag, the doors would open, and bag by bag, all these black garbage bags would come out of all of the different apartments, and we would fill vans up with Trainwreck trim that we would tumble. And Trainwreck was all the rage at that time. And we would tumble, and we would make these bricks of hash.
potent smell too.
Potent
so
smell, unique. Trainwreck hash on the menu is just a really unique thing.
racy high.
So that's how I met Burner
Mhm.
for the first time, because we started vending to all of these, shops on the list and whatnot.
What kind of hash you said? So
Trainwreck, it was pucks. We would use the Jack Puck press or something like
Yeah.
that at the beginning, but then we made our own that was like a little bit bigger.
dry sift or
Dry
wash?
sift.
Okay.
Dry sift tumble,
Yeah.
and then collect the resin heads. Before, I'd spent a lot of time in Amsterdam. Even at this time, I went when I was like 19, 20, 21, staying at Mila, the isolator bag. I went to her hotel, the Hemp Hotel, stayed with her a lot. Met Marcus, Bubbleman, really met him out in Holland. I was I was going to the Cannabis Cups in Holland. Met Arjan the year he came out with Hawaiian Snow and passed around like a joint this big. And it's really full circle to see him in Spain with you guys and just even be friends now and whatnot. But Bay Area, vending to all these stores, meeting Gil, became friends. That's how we, eventually got into doing Cookies Thailand and all these things. Getting
We'll get into
connected
that.
through Pistol Point, through my partner and a project we were doing.
We can't skip over that. That's
Yeah, I
two
know. We'll
massive
get to
things.
that.
We'll
So
get
we'll
into
get to
both
that.
those. Yeah.
So vending to all these shops, and eventually we were doing really well with that. And we're like, wow, let's do one of these ourselves. So we eventually got enough together to go get a property in Butte County, a little area called, where was it? It was Fort Trees, east of Concow. And we grew, I think it was 72 plants. And we did it all compliantly with patients and whatnot. And the sheriffs came down and asked us what we're doing with everything. And they said that, it's a lot of cannabis for so few people. What are you going to do? So we eventually formed a collective and then migrated the collective to Van Nuys. We found a strip mall on Craigslist. We were young, we were hungry, and we wanted to do something special. And we knew that, especially looking at that California normal list, there was a big area of Southern California that didn't have safe access to medicine. And we had with what we had grown and with, some of our other indoor contacts and whatnot, we felt like we were ready. We knew what it took to have one of these good collectives. And we went into Craigslist and we got a little strip mall in Van Nuys, 7100 Van Nuys Boulevard at Sherman Way. And we started Trichome Healing Caregivers, which to this day was one of the most fun places. And that was the first one of it was the first collective in Van Nuys ever. The second in the Valley. Calvin Fry had something called Compassionate, I think it was Compassionate Caregivers of Studio City or something like that.
Mhm.
Now Clonesville or something like that, or became that. But we were the second.
That's what was going to be my question. Were
Yeah.
you the first one in the Valley? Because the Valley is such a crucial area of California. If you don't know that area is the mecca of, San Fernando Valley OG, SFV.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weed grown right there. Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough because we were some Bay guys coming in with all the purples and all the other flavors, but we were coming into OG territory and we didn't have OG on the menu right away. And people were telling us, yo, you need to have OG on the menu. And we heard the prices and we're like, at those prices, we can't. That's not medical. That's not compassion. Eventually we got it to a point where we got some fair priced OG that was really nice. And we called it the $100 OG because at that time, other stores were charging $30, $35 a gram all the way up. And we wouldn't do that. So we used it as, a way to keep our patients loyal and in there that needed the OG. But we still had a lot of other good flavors that we would go up to Northern California and get ourselves.
So what do you like, if you don't mind me asking, because I've always been interested in this, what are the differences in Northern and Southern when you're saying you got to have OG on the menu down here? What's the Bay? What are they producing at the time then?
Purple.
Really?
Everything was
Flavors
Urkel, God's Gift, Granddaddy's. At that time, and one of our mentors was Kenny Estes, who had, in that little area of Oakland, he was like the king of Granddaddy. You go to his store and there were always like 8 or 9 kinds of purple. You had to have some really good Granddaddy or some really good Urkel on your menu in the Bay at that time to even compete. And everyone was just selling purple. Very little OG at that time. And just a lot of good flavors. Just a lot of Morning Glory, Morning Star, Ingrid, and Cough, NL5 Hazes, strain, like I don't even know, like original
Originals.
cherry
Mhm.
AKs.
This is before the cookies, before the
Before
sunset
cookies,
sherbets,
before
before
cookies.
all
Yeah,
that.
before
Just so
cookies.
people know that this is the lineage before that. When you start hearing NL and all that.
Yeah, we were all at that time, we were all going to Holland. That was like, you know, at the same time when we went down to LA and we started in LA, Don and Aaron DNA kind of took the LA California vibe to Holland. And it was like it was going over there, and they were instrumental in doing a lot of the California style genetics for the masses out of you know, Holland at that time. But we were, you know, Northern California was definitely purples and those kind of strains. When we wanted to start growing the gas, when everyone wanted us to start growing the gas, we at that time Adam Ill worked for Cali Connection with Swerve. So we would connect with him to get a large amount of seeds, because when we needed to grow the gas in seed form, there was no one that had it in seed form. And to get cuts at the time was really difficult, and growing them out, and you didn't know if it was, you know, a good one or whatnot. So when we wanted to grow gas in the ground up in the hills, we would go buy, you know, 5,000, 10,000 seeds, feminized seeds at the time of the gas from, you know, Cali Connection through, or we would buy online. We would use Seed Boutique. We would use you know, when Attitude came online, we would use a lot of these other players, or we would go to Europe and get seeds, or go to Canada, and however they got here. But we were just growing a lot of different things, but it eventually turned into gas, fruit, pine for, you know, those kind of flavor profiles that buyers or wholesalers were looking for.
Man, I get super heady with all that.
Yeah.
I know he does. You know, we like to hear about the early days. And so continue where I know we like to hear the story. Continue with the Valley, right? Let's hear about those
Yeah.
$100 OGAs.
So you come down, you guys set up shop. What was it like? I mean, I'm sure people were going in there like, yo, you don't got OG.
Started like 15 people a day. One of the first days, I had this young kid with long hair come in with his dad. His name's Caden. Caden does Kush Stock now. He was literally, I think, like 18 years old.
Mr. K.
We have Dr. K, Mr. K. We didn't have any employees. He comes in with his dad. Hey, you know, I'd love for you to employ my son. He was our first employee. We started from the ground. We had a room. We were living in the shop because we just didn't know if it would work or not. Within the first couple months, we got our money together to get a place in Woodland Hills. Then eventually we all went our separate way, or we went to the hills, Laurel Canyon. At that time, it was really dangerous. We had a lot of home invasions. There was a lot of bad things happening because nobody could put the money in the bank. If we did put it in the bank, they'd shut us down and they'd keep it, or they wouldn't. You know, it's not like today where they would give money back. Robberies, all that kind of stuff.
How'd you talk the landlord into getting you the spot?
We were a compassionate caregiver under Prop 215 and recognized under Prop 215 and Senate Bill 420 at the time. So that was our business license.
And he was okay with that.
We were compassionate caregivers.
Okay.
Yeah, we were compassionate caregivers at that time. You didn't really talk about what you were doing. There were no permits or licenses for the city or the county. Very few in West Hollywood. We're starting to get it at that time. West Hollywood was the only area of LA that, you know, that had their shit together in that sense. About 3 years after having THC and Van Nuys, we eventually got a license in West Hollywood. It's now Zen West Hollywood, the store. We were this West Hollywood Center for Compassionate Healing. It was a little store. We didn't really turn it into something really as big as Zen has. But at one point I had those two stores. But back to Van Nuys, 10 people a day, turned into 20 people a day, turned into 40 people a day. Eventually by our first year, we're seeing over 400 on 420, you know, and
wow.
It was really amazing. Like, you know, we were focused on getting all of our medicine from Northern California or from growers directly and not waiting for vendors to come to us, because people were just cold calling and asking to vend. And if you get the last of the last and you're paying the most, you're not really doing that well. So our strong suit was going up north. Burn or Gil and our relationship was so fantastic at the time because he had so many connections from working at the Hemp Center on Geary, which was to this day still one of my favorite collectives and experiences with the owner Kathleen and the whole crew, and I really learned a lot and loved that place. You could go in there with $50 or and prorate an eighth or like an eighth 4 ways, get 4 different things prorated or one. It was crazy, and you could smoke in there. It was
Patient centric.
yeah, very patient centric. She was very political too. You could call government and like, you know, raise some hell, and she would give you a free joint or do something, you know, give you a discount or something like that. Forgot what it was, but it was a great place. He eventually started coming down to LA once in a while and helping us get product because it got so crazy in the Valley and in LA that we couldn't keep going up north, or the drivers would get pulled over. We'd have drivers pulled over, get their money taken. At the time, sometimes they were flying up north and the money would get taken out of the airplane, confiscated product coming down. I mean, everything you could think of that's happened in cannabis, I've experienced it. I'll get into it later. I've had a dead guy on my property that died in a fire trying to burn my house down in the hills when I was growing outdoor. I've had, you know, home invasions. I've been tied up in the store. I've been tied up in the house.
I definitely want to hear about the fire story when you got some, you know.
All these things that, like, you know, I can look back on today. And it's, you know, there's a lot of civil rights and a lot of those types of things in what we all do that make me proud of what we do and what we've gone through and where we're going because of what we've experienced. And it's not just me, it's everyone, and everyone has a story. It's like really beautiful to see how the light at the end of the tunnel is kind of opening up.
It's changing. You can have security now. So that guy who's coming to shoot you or trying to rob you or kidnap you, you used to hear about these stories in the hills where a collective owner would get kidnapped.
Yep.
Like that was a normal thing. Yeah. That was like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes. I've heard that. And it's like, no, that can't, that's insane.
You can have a bank account.
That guy's paying taxes.
You can pay taxes. You know, at that time, you know, everyone knew that the money wasn't in the bank, you know, everywhere, you know, for the most part, you know, so there was always hunting season. I mean, it's still there with all the, you know, traditional and black, a lot of that stuff. There's still a lot of cash around everywhere. People still have to be like really careful. And with the way the world is today and all that, we have to be vigilant and really look after one another. But it's an amazing community. Every industry or every social group in the world has these types of communities. The cannabis community is super unique. And we're once again fortunate and blessed to like be a part of something that we've all stuck through a lot, or even the new guys, that it's important for them to hear the stories that we can all tell, to know what we've gone through, to share the experiences, to hopefully never let any of these things happen again. But to really know where we all came from and know our true foundation.
Yeah. I mean, that alone, there's a series of just, you want to hear a crazy story? Everybody in cannabis says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's it go after the Valley?
After the Valley to West Hollywood. West Hollywood, we were having 2 shops. A lot of my employees eventually and like coworkers eventually opened their own retails or did their own things, or you know, people saw it wasn't necessarily the most difficult thing to do, and we were all young and didn't have families and children and wives and whatnot, so people were going around. A lot of my friends that I grew up with that came down and helped us would go open stores. Still have some stores today. There's still like some people around LA that I still see, you know, people that came from the THC, Van Nuys, or West Hollywood Center for Compassionate Healing kind of network. And then
speaks to your success as a manager.
A lot of that. And like my partner, he was, you know, we had a couple partners. There was another third guy, even I lost him. We lost him. He passed away like literally a week before we opened. It was at the time when a lot of people were overdosing from OxyContin and drugs. And he took one combination of something that stopped his heart. And he was a really young, amazing person. He was supposed to be along the whole ride with us. Rest in peace, Paul. So he didn't make it. I've lost a good amount of friends to that through the years, which is really sad. A lot of money was being made too really quickly. So a lot, you know, for young people, but he wasn't necessarily, he has a whole story in his own, but it wasn't from that, just sad misfortune with pills and all that stuff. Eventually all of this, the robberies and we had a DEA raid in Van Nuys where they came in there for 12 hours, and I was in LA. I was like eating lunch when I got the call that they were in there raiding. They went over there one day, undercover DEA. The guy had a radio. He dressed kind of transient, dirty looking. We had a security with a gun, and they looked like police at the time. The guy's radio went off in his pocket when our reception was asking for his doctor note. He was startled because he didn't know that it was on. And our security guard said, "What's in your pocket, sir? What kind of radio is that?" And the officer or whatever was like, please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. And nobody was touching him. It was just a weird, awkward moment in the reception. That was a code for he's been found. For the other agents, they broke in, they threw everyone on the ground. At the time, we had some of our sickest patients in there. They threw them all on the ground, tied everyone up, tried to break the safe for 7 hours, eventually got a safe cracker over. We were really strong with Americans for Safe Access, donating a lot of money, having them come every week. So when the safe crackers came, we had a whole group of protesters and amazing people in the parking lot, like kind of pushing the this van that got commissioned from the DEA to come open it from Laverne. So they were nervous for their lives. So they didn't get out. They eventually left. And then later at the night, another safecracker came open. They took all our money. They took the product. No one got arrested.
You're legally paying taxes at this time.
No, there was no.
So it was before that.
We were doing our way of paying
yes,
the collective taxes. There were no city, state taxes that we were working with our legal and with the city and state to do what we could.
This is when the DA swooped in and just decided to basically take seizures.
It was happening a lot. Happening a lot. This is also the same time they were sending letters to owners of it was the Bush, I think in Ashcroft era, where they were sending letters to the owners of buildings, threatening them that they're violating federal law and they're going to lose their properties and whatnot.
Cash seizure.
Same time, yeah, it would be a letter. They sent it to my parents' house. They sent it to my apartment. They send it to everyone, every address, to let everyone know that they're getting a receipt, and it tells you how much money they take or whatever they take, and if you want to get it back or you want to fight it, this is how you get it back. Never did that. So after that, there was a lot of this kind of stuff, and the calls to my dad about the home invasions and my parents, and you sure you want to do this? And a couple of my friends that I started with eventually left because they couldn't take it anymore, but it was a lot of stress. I got a call to go to Thailand the first time for vacation, and I discovered Thailand on vacation. Long story short, I eventually shut down LA with my partners. I was done. We exit. My partner pretty much took it all and just got a little bit of money. I think after doing really well, I think I saved $60,000-$70,000. Nothing at all, really big. And I moved to Thailand for 4 years.
Wow.
Moved to Thailand for 4 years. Eventually sold rice, Thai rice. This is when Alibaba started. So I was just hustling rice as a white guy in Bangkok to the world through Alibaba. And so I know a lot about rice. And then Colombian coffee. I went to college for 2 years, Boston University in Boston. Met a great group of people. Some of them were from Colombia, and they got into the coffee industry. So I was importing Colombian coffee from Colombia to Asia, mostly doing rice for 4 years. Still growing my couple plants on the balcony. Very dangerous in Thailand at the time. Super dangerous. In 2000, I think it was 2008, 2009. But
you would see people hung with cranes.
Oh yeah, when you would land in Bangkok. There's two airports, but there was one airport called Don Mueang, and there'd be a billboard that drug punishing is punishable by death, and the Bangkok Hilton is a very famous jail that they call the Bangkok Hilton, where for a joint at that time you're facing I don't want to say death in Thailand, but almost. Depending who you were,
over 10 years jail time.
Easy.
Yep. For
Easy.
a joint.
So yeah. So for cannabis, and I wasn't smuggling, I'm not bringing stuff over international borders. You go to a reggae bar over there. They call them reggae bars. There's always one in every little town. And then you meet a dread-headed Thai, and he'll sell you a little bag of some brick Lao weed that got compressed and sent on a boat from Laos into Thailand. until about a couple of years ago, that was probably, and still is, the majority of the cannabis consumed in Thailand.
Those
what I
guys
smoked
are
for 4 years.
risking death, though. Those guys.
Yeah, but it's so corrupt over there, especially if it's one guy on a boat paying the Lao side and paying the police. There's definitely some money. Like,
Okay.
yeah, for sure. So
Yeah,
I think that
madness.
people are paying off people, much like Morocco to Spain and all these other places. The world is getting better in that sense and tougher.
Mhm.
But there's definitely a lot of corruption over there. But yeah, I took an exit. After all that, I exited to Thailand. I got out of cannabis for almost 5 years. Lived in Thailand, did the thing. My wife was my girlfriend. So I was also working together with her. We were learning to live with each other. We were traveling together. I've traveled, and I used that as a jumping point to Nepal and India, but for cannabis. Obviously I didn't tell my wife it was only for cannabis, but went to northern India, to the Himachal Pradesh, to Shimla, Kulu, Manali, Malana, all these like amazing charas zones in northern India. I've been to.
Is that the Hindu mountains?
Yeah,
that's the Hindu mountains.
It's called the Hindu Kush are in Pakistan, Afghanistan. This is called the Himachal Pradesh, which is like the Dalai Lama is in Dharamsala, but for the most part, it's the mountains that separate Nepal, Tibet, and India. And it's a very large hash consuming, growing culture in the hills of Malana. There's people that say they're descendants of Alexander the Great, and they won't touch foreigners, and you can't really even go up there without a proper guide, no pictures. And they've been cultivating and harvesting and rubbing charas for a long, long time. I've been into Nepal, into Pokhara, into some of those like Kathmandu, and seeing how they do, a little bit touristy now, but I got some temple balls and saw some of the charas, a lot of the hash over there, those two countries, hand rubbed. I've also been to Morocco. I've been into Katama. I've been into Chefchaouen. So been to a lot of these, Jamaica. I've done some of those funny ganja tours up into the hills where some Rasta takes you to his little plot. I've always really wanted to, and the Rasta plot thing started when I was 16 on cruise ships, when I would go with my parents on a cruise with the family and bail from them at port of call to like say I'm going with a Rasta to go check out reggae stuff, and I was just going to get high. So at 16, I was already finding ways, come up with some shenanigans to get high and get away from my parents. So travel, cannabis, eventually, all led to Thailand. And then I eventually got the call to come back to Northern California from Bosco, the same guy that I started all the dispensary and the growing with, that we grew up from middle school up to come back and help him in the hills of NorCal. And then we started doing medical cultivation outside, big plants, never more than 99 plants per property, 16 patients, 6 plants per patient flowering.
You're jumped right back in.
I was in Thailand, on IC Mag, on like these like new THC farmers. I was reading, I was following up on everything I was missing. I was, Tom Hill and some of these other big plant growers. There was a guy named Butte on IC Mag. Like I was seeing what they were doing with some of these plants in one hole, with one plant, like 10 pounds, 14 pounds, 15 pounds. I'm like, that got me all excited. I love the hortitrellis.
But why move back?
Because it was such a, I was making minimal, I wasn't making that much money in Thailand. So it was definitely an opportunity, more of an opportunity to my girlfriend I wanted to marry her. We did get married on paper just to get her over as my wife, to build something in America. Mm-hmm. So it was multi-pronged. It was to get back to my family. It was to get out of Thailand. It's very tough to make it as a 20-something-year-old white guy on a visa in Bangkok, selling, like, you know what I mean? I have a lot of things going against me to succeed. Got her back here, and then we got a property in Oroville, a 40-acre property, and it was ours that we ran and grew mostly gas, a lot of OGs, Tahoes, Chem Valley Kushes, a lot of Chem Diesel, a lot of the chemi kind of gassy stuff, and grew. We did about, I think it was like 400 pounds the first year. Huge
outdoor grow.
No more than 99 plants. So at that time, it was only a 4 pound average, which eventually was the first year of soil. Because back in the day, we would go clear out these pieces. It wasn't like you did a plot like today. We would do holes in the ground, but we would be buying up to like 300 to 500 yards of soil for each hole. So it would be literally a jacuzzi hole in the ground. So some of these plants, the first year it was a big hole with a little plant. We were learning everything. We got 4 pound average. By like the third year on those same, on those same holes, the soil kept getting bigger or better. It was all organic amendment, no till, if you will. Tui, who still is with, working together with me today, who's been with me since the hills of Oroville, went up to Oregon for Pistol Point, came back down to Natura. I think he had a 23 pounder, like one plant, 23 pounds. So he was hitting like 23 pounds, 18 pounds, 16 pounds on some of these things. They would just not stop growing. So many arms, 12 to 15 feet diameter from stalk to stalk to each plant. You're talking acreage, I don't know, like an acre to 2 acres, but only for 99 plants.
Those are
so
huge
optimal.
It's Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And that's when we started. Yeah, I started washing like a lot of the trim. At that time, there was no fresh freezing, or I didn't know. We would freeze the trim and whatnot, but using my bubble bags, isolator bags, making good bubble hash, mostly for myself. There were no freeze dryers, so we would make a lot of hash. I didn't have all the tech sometimes. It would mold out or whatnot because we wouldn't.
Was
really
it branded? Was it a branded?
No branding.
Okay, so
No
it was
branding.
all just hitting the market.
No branding, just mostly like medical
Mhm.
distributor types would come to the farm and whatnot, and we would just with collective to collective.
So this is before Pistol Point. Then.
This is before Pistol
Okay.
Point. I was doing all that in Northern California, and then we started. It was 4 of us, including Tui, that ended up going to Oregon and starting Pistol Point. Eventually was Sid, myself, and Tui. The guys came and they saw what we were doing in Northern California, really liked it. And Sid, my partner in Pistol Point, really wanted to do something in Oregon. That was the state that he chose. He was from New York. Much like me in California, California is my home. Nothing more than I want to do is succeed and do good here in my state. He's the same with New York. So came to Oregon to really learn. We went together. We built Pistol Point in Oregon, indoor, created some amazing relationships, grew some amazing flower, still around today. We
built some big relationships.
Touch
on that.
Yeah, big
Because you
relationships.
guys
Like
really
we did
did.
a really great one was, Sid was forward thinking with doing a collab with G-Pen, and we were the fill partners with TJ's in Oregon to do the G-Pen Geo launch, which at the time was some cool proprietary, pods. That there was packs and pretty much that at the time. And
Cookies collab.
Through that there was cookies, and through that I had kind of fallen off my relationship with Gil, with Burn for a while. I hadn't been in touch. I was doing my thing, he was doing his thing. I saw that him connecting with Cosmo, which is another long story for another time, because I've known Cosmo, his producer, since we were 16, from just smoking weed, like coming back from my Israel trip when I was 16 in the Bay Area. I've known Cos, so I've had the privilege and luxury of reconnecting with Cos as well. And my kid plays with his kid, and we're, family friends, and it's awesome.
Bay
We
Area
live close to
small.
each other and whatnot. But we were, it was Chris and G-Pen and Sid and the whole G-Pen collab that brought like Burn back around, and we started doing collabs with Cookies. We helped launch Cookies into Oregon. And it was an amazing the G-Pen platform in Oregon was an amazing way for us to just get involved with a lot of players in the space, build a name really quickly, and cement ourselves in Oregon, with other people just as being players.
But you're specifically an operator, right?
I was, I unfortunately with Oregon, I sent Tui, Tui went up and I tried to throw as much as I could to Oregon. I have a 7-year-old autistic son that requires a lot of my wife and I, mostly my wife. She's, bless her heart, with him most of the time, so I can do what I need to do to support the family and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a negative for me and for the group, that I wasn't able to really live in Oregon and be there all the time. And it was tough for the company. I did what I could. I do what I can, but it was it's a big obstacle for my family to not be around. And my wife just got her driver's license like a little over a year ago. She's older than I am. Like, so it was really tough in my house having a wife that wasn't able to drive, an autistic son. I have a 10-year-old daughter. My son, who also works at Natura now, he's 25. I inherited through marriage a 25-year-old son that I brought from Thailand when he was 16 and put him through high school. And he now cultivates cannabis, still hasn't consumed cannabis, but loves growing it, loves all the aspects of touching the plant and whatnot. So for Oregon, I knew what it took to operate, but I was also, Sid and I both developed the business, a lot of relationships and whatnot. I would try to do what I could. I would go up there probably once a month, 3 to 4. I'd try to be 3 to 4 days or as often as I could, but it was tough. We were also trying to build something in California. We had a building in Sacramento that we put a lot of money to with some other partners that I grew up with as well that didn't succeed. And that's actually how in Sacramento, I found out about Natura, what was building with Natura. And I was able to kind of spend time meeting Ori and the team that he was building over at Natura to find something to bring Pistol Point to have a name in California again, and be close to my family, because my family was suffering. Even me leaving 3-4 days is tough for them, and I had to bring it a lot more home. My son, the older he gets, the more he needs us in his life. It's important for him to have us around. It's not, he's very routine oriented. But yeah, so Pistol Point, Oregon.
Yep.
We exited to a Canadian company last year, and then now the focus is pretty much for Pistol Point in California, and then Sid is in New York, really doing some cool things in New York. He's got his head down, focused on New York, which is his baby, where he loves to be, where his home is, and we've had I was telling you guys earlier, the Jungle Boys fire that happened. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. Same time we had a massive fire in Oregon. We've had 2 fires actually. Electrical, same thing. Electrical. The sparks fell on the tables. The smoke and all the sprinklers ruined everything.
Could you explain that to people? Because not a lot of people have seen. Like, some people just hadn't seen what had happened.
What happened is, and we were using, I think it was like a combination of metal halide and HPS. Some sparks, like one of the lights sparked. The sparks fell down. We had like plastic tables that were holding the plants. The sparks would hit the tables. The tables would smolder and smoke and burn. The smoke and all of that triggers sprinklers, because we have to have sprinklers in all these rooms. The sprinklers go on, they spray down, they damage. So between room. The smoke and the sprinklers and you're pretty much done. You're done. You
lose everything.
And that happened in our mother room one time and in the flower room one time. So one recommendation I would have for every cultivation, especially with new and important genetics, have carbon copies offsite. You never know. And in insurance, you can get money back. You can't get plants back. You cannot get a lot of these things back. Sometimes they're gone forever. Find a good trusted person, find a good trusted place, and try to keep a carbon copy somewhere, especially if it's something that's really important to your program, your brand, your facility, whatever it is. We've lost a lot of good ones, people and plants over the years.
It's a scary thing that I think a lot of people in the whole business, all of cannabis, never thought of that. When we saw the Jungle Boys fire and we saw the whole room get ruined, and then it's all because a bulb bursts and the bulb hits that plastic tray. And if that AC is attached to other rooms, the whole rooms are gone. So they had to, you're talking millions of dollars of loss. And like you said, that happened in a mom room. You end up losing all the genetics.
Priceless.
There you go.
Just like art, like some of these things that when someone dies or something like that, like, a lot of these genetics, people have died or people are gone, or the genetics, the seeds lose virility, they stop sprouting, or there's so many things in cannabis, and at the end of the day, they're just plants. And now we're seeing all these, viruses and viroids and whatnot, even the things that we had been keeping, and they're getting infected by other plants around them. And, a lot of people are growing things that are infected.
A larger percentage.
A lot of people are trading those infected plants around. And it's a bad process, and it's tough, and that's why I love popping seeds, and like finding new things, and they're usually starting off on the right foot without a lot of problems, unless they're just the seeds themselves are problematic. So that's a favorite pastime of mine. Like right now we're doing a big hunt at Natura. We have a new mother room, a new hunt room. So and that's like for
Explain
friends.
what Natura is, man,
Yeah.
because you're underputting it. Yeah. Or
So hold on, I want to digress a little bit. Move up to Oregon, Pistol Point,
Mhm.
birth of that. Now, when you're closing it out, how long did Pistol Point? How long were you working on that project?
2014 till about 2021. You know what I
Okay.
mean? 6-7 years up there.
Yeah, it's a good run.
It was a good run.
And then talk about the transition. Like, how did because
the building I was talking about.
Natura, it's like it's a big situation, and so how did that come about? Coming out of Pistol Point.
So Hall of Flowers, I think it was 2018. There was a group that was formed on WhatsApp by this guy named Matt, and it was called the Cannabis, or it's still around. It's called the Cannabis Illuminati, and it's basically a list of operators, owners, certain figures in the space around the country and world that we all connected on WhatsApp. And there was a party, an Illuminati party that was thrown at CannaCraft. Ned and Dennis of CannaCraft had everyone over there. It was an awesome event. It was great turnout. So many who's were there, whatnot. And I went with my partners at the time, two of them that we were trying to do this build out in Sacramento, but these are friends I grew up with. And they come over to me and they tell me, hey, because Rambo, my friend Ram, is a Persian, and Scott, we're both kind of half Jewish. He's half Jewish, I'm full Jewish, but they're joking with me. Ram likes to joke with me. He's like, hey, one of your guys, he's an Israeli guy. Or he's like, we're just talking to this guy over here. Man, you need to meet him. He lives right by you in Sacramento, and he's doing this crazy project, something I've never heard of before. So I was interested a little bit. I was on the other side of the room, and then I eventually introduced myself and got his number. I saw him on the WhatsApp a little bit, talking, because he was also in the group. And then a couple days later in Sacramento, I met him a couple more times through the week in Hall of Flowers. And then eventually went by the lot, because it was a 12-acre dusty lot in the middle of Sacramento, where you'd have a wall of all these the vision, the renderings and all that stuff, but it was a big lot. There was construction hadn't even really started yet. There were some trailers, and it was a bunch of people talking about things that they were going to do or they wanted to do. Ori was highly animated, and he was kind of the one running it. But everyone else mostly hadn't really done anything big in cannabis. So it was a little and I was there with my Pistol Point hat on. I actually wanted to bring Pistol Point, if the building wasn't going to work that we were trying to build out, I wanted to do Pistol Point at a place like Natura, because I found out about Natura. He explained it to me. It's basically a platform to scale and launch brands into the space in California in a CPG fashion. The cultivation, which is I think
what's a CPG?
Consumer packaged goods.
Got it.
Basically, when you go to a Walmart, Costco, whatever, anything that's in a package, like these hash hole boxes, something that's elevated and belongs on a shelf, and is going to evolve with seasons and years and progress into something even more perfect than just what you'd find in a supermarket or a convenience store or a clothing store or whatnot, which is what we are, is really scaling and launching some of these brands, and some of them from the hills of Humboldt, like Jelly Wizard, to Fidel from the streets of Los Angeles, to make them household names and really tell their stories. That's a big part of it, is that these people, these brands, and they have to be involved in the brands, have a story to tell. And we're using all of these people to tell their stories to the masses. Positive, I think, are I'm not going to get it word by word, but our mantra at Natura is positively affecting millions of lives through the scaling and launching of cannabis brands like we're doing right now. So it's the goal is to positively affect. I definitely missed a couple words in there, but positively affecting millions of lives through these products, and really doing fun things. Like a lot of people come to Natura and, you know, come do a tour with me or come walk around and they say it feels like Willy Wonka's Wonderland. Going back to my uncle a little bit, that's what dragged me to Ori, and then him and the vision and the place. I saw my uncle do something similar. I saw my uncle go from 20,000 square feet in Hunters Point to 120,000 square feet in the Folsom area market, south of Market in San Francisco. I saw him go from making 20,000 truffles a day to buying a machine from Cadbury that did 300,000 truffles a day. I saw him go from little mom and pop stores to going into Takashimaya in Tokyo, to Harrods in London, to Saks Fifth Avenue, to Neiman Marcus, to Macy's, to Costco, to Trader Joe, and then the exit to Hershey's. I wanted that. I want that for cannabis. I wanted to be a part. I know, and I knew it's coming. There was no other platform I had ever seen or heard about that was like Natura. Ori has one partner. There's two partners that own it. It was $90+ million investment by one guy. No shareholders, no outside groups put money. It's literally two guys. So it's for someone like me that doesn't want to, you know, hear something and it really goes another, like we can really have action. There's solutions. Ori's very solution driven. Barry, his partner and the investor, he's an amazing guy. He's one of the largest real estate holders in downtown Los Angeles, made all of his money, most of his money in the real estate market. But we have a great dynamic between the two of them that allows us to flourish, and us meaning we have close to 300 plus employees right now, from cultivation to manufacturing to extraction to admin to custodial. I mean, it's an amazing security, amazing complex, 12 acres in the dead center of Sacramento, across the street from the Navy and Marine complex with tanks and artillery and whatnot. And then next door to FedEx, where basically Ori's vision was coming in, knowing where this piece of land was and knowing who his partners were, what we were doing, what the mission was. And we're willing to go up against anyone, a colonel, the head of FedEx, whoever it was, to show that what we're doing is special, unique, and needed to really end the monopoly that pharmaceutical industry has had on everything we touch and breathe right now, and really pave the way for something really special. So Natura is just something really special. It's a blank canvas that a lot of artists every day get to come to and perform and do their best. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. Fidel came and had a hash hole vision and trained an amazing team, hands-on of we hand roll all of the hash holes, no rolling machine, no nothing. And these amazing people are dedicated in one room to rolling. And that's just one room. You got automated joints, you got flower pack off, you have the kitchen is amazing. We do edibles for some of the most amazing groups in the space, everyone from Alien Labs to Buddies. We do Jelly Wizard, D right now. We're doing a rosin gummy that's doing amazing in the space. It's catching waves. It's something that we built 4 or 5 years ago. D means good in Thai, and CBD was what we were kind of focused on at the time, doing like CBD gummies and whatnot. But it's a play on Thailand and what I've done in my past in Thailand, what I plan on doing in Thailand. Met some amazing people in Thailand. So the partnership with D involves the support of some notable Thai people. We have some plans to license it in Thailand as well, because the goal really is to just, on the bottom of every bag, there's the childproof stuff. There's some fun facts on the bottom of every bag. So each bag of D is vegan, gluten-free, always solventless hash, no disti hidden in there. We're only using solventless hash rosin.
Tastes phenomenal.
that you can taste that there's something in
They're
there.
gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Oh, I feel so much better.
They definitely smack. You know, we have to max out at 100 milligrams, but they definitely smack. We're using full spectrum.
What is each piece? Do you know?
10.
10. Tastes phenomenal,
Yeah.
man. You can taste.
The
I
lychee is
definitely
one
can
of the
taste a
hot-
little bit of rosin. I love that.
Definitely
though.
can taste it.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want a little bit of that. You know,
Disty is a way of
Love
getting people high, but it's a very one-sided high.
Yes.
The warm fuzzies that a lot of these hash edibles give you is definitely catching people by storm, and people are slowly migrating away from distillate-based edibles. I'm noticing a lot of trends in the market shifting towards either hash rosin or hash.
the body effects are so different off of hash rosin, and same with the giggle effects, the distillate. It's you got to know. I mean, it's hot dog water. That's what they used to call it because what it's made out of. I mean, literally, you guys are working with rosin and you're able to cultivate resin at your single source facility.
Yep, and D is also a cool platform too, where it's a high focus brand of gummy, but each release or different releases have different hash inputs. So we did a critical Alex and his team did the hash rosin for the first one.
Big shout out Critical
Big shout out to
Concentrates.
Critical, one of the
Huge.
legends. Very. I used to come down from the hills of Oroville to Emerald Cup, and you'd have Critical and Terp Hogs and Third Gen and Connected and Cookie. All these guys doing like amazing things. Gold Drop, the Shatters and like the Beazle and First Class Concentrates.
Oh.
All the I would come down from the hills and I would only have my sun grown, which was cool, but I'd want all these cool terps that were coming out of all these places that it would take me an hour to even drive to another property in Oroville. I wasn't really going around that much.
Southern Humboldt Concentrates.
Southern Humboldt, just all that good stuff. So that's where I got integrated back into California because I had been out. Also there were a lot of those years when we were up in the hills of Northern California. We didn't want to talk to a lot of people. We were really hush hush. We were always, I've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. Always nervous there was going to be someone coming to knock down your door, either rob you or arrest you. Who knows?
There was.
We didn't. Yeah, we didn't know. So we just had to keep chugging. It was crazy.
Man, just to digress a little bit, you went on vacation to Thailand, then you just stayed.
I went on vacation to Thailand.
And you just stayed for 4 or 5 years.
No,
you
it
came
wasn't
back.
that. It was so at that time, there used to be a nonstop flight, Thai Air from LA to Bangkok. It was the shit. It was 16 or 17 hours one way, no stops. Because now, if anyone wants to fly to Thailand from America, you need to stop in usually Taiwan or Hong Kong or Singapore or Tokyo or whatnot, because to cut it up a little bit. And there's not a big enough demand for Thailand yet. So I went on that first trip. It was New Year's Eve, 2005. Went to Koh Samui. I went to Bangkok, but got on another flight. Didn't spend any time in Bangkok. Met 3 of my friends over there that were already in Thailand 2 or 3 days. They already had like their little, like they knew what they were doing. They were already out excursioning and whatnot in Koh Samui when I arrived. So I remember I was like 2 hours alone walking on the beach. My first minutes in Thailand, looking around, smelling. It was New Year's Eve. It was Chaweng Beach in Koh Samui, like looking around, seeing the tourists, the massages, the food, the vibes, the music, the weather, the smell. I was like, wow, because I've traveled a lot. I've been to a lot of countries. My dad used to trade food to British Airways. We used to go to travel a lot. I'd never experienced anything like this. At that time, I was a Mexico, Jamaica guy. I used to go to Jamaica every year, love reggae music. Would go to Negril and smoke and just chill. That was my thing. So I did want tropical in my life. I did want, Koh Samui. First night I had a motorcycle accident on New Year's Eve in front of all these restaurants, just not like detrimental, but scratched up my whole leg. All these girls came over and helped us like clean up, and like we were young and a lot skinnier than I am now. I was looking pretty good. So they hung out with these girls, hung out with us the whole night. Eventually, I had fun, we were hooked up, kept in touch, went back to Thailand over and over. And I think in 1 year, I went like 7 or 8 times on vacation.
Wow.
We were doing well in LA and shit kept happening that like was making me crazy. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to Thailand. So
And you're staying for how long each time you're going?
2 weeks.
Okay.
The first time I extended it an extra week, but 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Discovering the country, really going around. And then we became kind of like, boyfriend, girlfriend for the most part, long distance. I ended LA. And then I moved to Thailand. At the beginning, I didn't know if I wanted to work or whatnot. I went to back to Koh Samui, the island that I had met her at, and really fell in love with that island because there's a lot of cool shit. And it's kind of like near Koh Phangan, which is where they do full moon parties. So it's not as crazy as the full moon island, but you get a lot of that fun, like bars and my DJs. I used to do a lot of like music with dance music, or a lot of work with dance music. At one point I was like managing DJs before cannabis and stuff like that. And I grew up in the rave scene of San Francisco, going to raves when we were like 16, 17, 18.
Is it like the movie The Beach?
It is like this. So that's Koh Phi Phi, but that whole, never seen the weed field. Never seen the weed field like that. But went to Koh Samui, took some Thai classes, had a tutor come to my house because I like languages. I can speak Spanish, I can speak and read Hebrew. I really wanted to, one of my pet peeves in life is going somewhere and not knowing what people are saying. So I really wanted to learn. I had people coming over to teach me, but it was too fun in Koh Samui, and I wanted to try and make some money and try and work. So went to Bangkok, convinced my buddy that was in Colombia to do I think we put in like 20K each to start an office in Bangkok to like sell and broker rice and coffee. And for about 4 years, we're in the heart of Bangkok, in like kind of like the red light district, but like the south end of the street. It's called Soi 4, Sukhumvit Soi 4. It's called Nana. It's like ironically called Nana, like in Bangkok. And my office was like an apartment way down south. Every morning going to the gym, I'm like walking down like one of the most populated tourist streets where there's like lady boys and people still drinking on the streets at 7 a.m. When I would go to the gym, 7 a.m, they're all still raging and partying on the streets. So it was really like fun part of the city.
And
Bangkok,
you smoked weed the whole time.
Secretly.
Yeah.
Secretly, very privately. Nobody knew, my girlfriend / wife now, but nobody knew what I had done before. Like very few people knew like what I did. Cannabis was super hush hush at that time. I remember even it was when Obama was getting elected, or he was going through elections, and George Bush Jr. was the end of his tenure. He was visiting Bangkok. And the FBI was, and like the Thai police were like doing their fly with the helicopters around Bangkok just to like make sure it was all good for George Bush. And I'm like hiding. I had like a little plant, like a little auto plant, like hiding like my plant on my balcony because I like nervous. I have trauma, post-traumatic from all the hills. Like, we had helicopters every day. And so yeah, in Thailand, I was smoking on the DL. It was either the brick swag from Laos that comes over on the boats across the Mekong into Thailand, or it was Nepali or Indian hash that people would bring over, and you would smoke it. You would smoke it with either tobacco or weed, like shitty weed. The hash was always so awesome when we would get it.
Yeah.
But now Thailand's changed a lot. You can find even Cali weed from some people out there. There's, you can.
Any close calls?
In
Like,
Thailand?
yeah, where you were like, holy
No.
shit, I almost got caught smoking weed and
No.
got arrested.
No, and I was always really like,
Yeah.
when I would go to
Discipline.
Singapore, when I would go to Malaysia, or I'd go to Indonesia or Bali, I was really careful. When I would go to those Maldives, when you would go to those countries, I've been lucky too. They never like really like check me hard, because I think they scare the shit out of people so hard that they don't necessarily need to look, but you don't even. All those countries I just mentioned, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and Maldives, on the landing card, the visa card that you fill out your information when you land, they're usually white, and in red print on the bottom, it says, warning, drug smuggling is punishable by death. And they'll say it on the airplane, the announcement, when you're landing, like right when you're about to land. So like, if you have anything on you, you're tripping. Yeah, you're tripping. You're like, so those people that get caught up in the airports and with like kilos and Bali and whatnot, like they know what's coming. What's coming. Like you're risking some shit. But most of those places, not Singapore, and I don't know Malaysia as well, but most of those places are corrupt, and you'll find the police that confiscate the weed are probably or were. I mean, they were selling it to that guy, and then the weed that's being sold is the stuff that the police confiscated. So that's the way a lot of those parts of the world
And
work.
now look at it. Now there's going to be a Cookies Thailand.
Cookies Thailand. There's gonna be a Cookies Thailand. The partner, the group that that formed together with Cookies in Thailand. One of the partners, Tom Cruciporn. When I used to live in Thailand, one of the like equivalent to Southwest Airlines, the low cost carrier, is called Air Asia. It's a Malaysian airline, and they have a Thai subsidiary called Thai Air Asia. It's one of the biggest low cost carriers in Thailand. They fly all around Asia, Japan, whatnot. They were even flying to Europe. And in the little pamphlet, in the marketing pamphlet, like 737, in the little air, it used to have this guy Tom's face. He was a partner in Air Asia, but he was also like a face. He was like so I was seeing this guy's face in Thailand a little bit. I was just a random, customer of this airline. Fast forward to Hall of Flowers. He came from Thailand, and I would see him online. He likes to talk on Facebook, and mostly Facebook was his, and YouTube. He came and met me at Hall of Flowers in Santa Rosa, and we hit it off. He started interviewing me. We started meeting in Vegas here and there and whatnot. And then eventually he wanted to do, he exited Air Asia, his like 10% to the company that owns Super Rich, which is the biggest, or not Super Rich, King Power, which is one of the biggest duty-free companies in Thailand. They also own Leicester City, a soccer club in the UK. Like, this is a really powerful family. I think like 4 or 5 years ago, the owner of the company died in a helicopter crash in the UK. It was a really big story. He exited his 10% share in the airline. I think the company exited for like 900 million or 800 something $million to this new company. So he had some power behind him, really trying to build something for the Thai people. I made the introduction to Gil, to Burner. Everyone hit it off. There's a great group in play for the Thai side. They're doing already licensed CBD and THC cultivation with the Nong Khai University. Everyone that's cultivating cannabis right now, THC, CBD in Thailand, has to be a pilot project with the university, and everything that comes out of it has to be donated or whatnot to the government Ministry of Health. And then they're just starting to have these like little like medical clinics where it's not smokable. It's tinctures, it's stuff like that. It is available on a limited basis to medical, but I've already seen documents being formed by the government for people like us. For Thailand, upon arrival, a government form to fill out your name, how much marijuana, if you're a medical patient, how much cannabis marijuana you're bringing into the kingdom, like signing it, and they're going to check it and they're going to sign off on it. So they're trying to be like, it's
aggressive.
And it's obviously it's illegal to smuggle cannabis out of almost every country. But Thailand has always taken an approach where if it arrives, it's okay. Like Thailand, most countries in the world only allow you to take out $10,000 per person or even family if they feel like it's a money smuggling type thing. Thailand says 20,000. Thailand says bring 20,000. So it's obviously Americans, we can't bring over 10, but other nations, they're opening up the doors to nations or countries to allow if the country on the other side has the ability to import cannabis, they're letting you do it. So it's like a whole new, it's like a pass, if you will. And when I was in Spain with you guys, I met a German character, a really nice guy, a Terps Army, who showed me a legal EU document that he carries, that he can bring cannabis from Germany to Spain on the airplane, on the car, like anything. Like, so these guys have 40 grams. I think he was like 40 grams, 50 grams. So there are these kind of documents around the world. We obviously have the script still in California, which is, rarely used or whatnot for courts mostly and whatnot. And for getting taxes, not paying taxes and whatnot. But the international world is paving the way. And, when you guys hopefully come visit me in Natura, a lot of the way that we built out Natura, like cultivation, for example, I'll throw around some names. Like I threw around CPG. The cultivation is built out to EU, European Union, GAP, Good Agricultural Practices. The manufacturing or building to our factory is built out to GMP, good manufacturing practices. All of these don't mean shit for cannabis on a legal side until federally things get lifted and we can utilize those standards like hemp, like food, like other, industries. But we're building out in a way that when federal lifts and when authorities like the FDA come in, we're going to be able to either, minor tweaks or minimal tweaks. We stay in business. We're able to continue, maybe even hopefully export. I tell everyone that's when I'm going to kind of take a back seat and probably relax a little bit, is when we're able to be duty free. Cannabis can be duty free, much like alcohol, tobacco, chocolates, anything you'd buy at like Tom Bradley or SFO or JFK or whatnot on your flight out, similar to Thailand, to a country that will allow you to import a specific amount of cannabis. We want to be treated the same. I want to see certain products available. Not every whiskey is available at duty free, but you can get a good amount of them. And they're usually like the integral players from the, Scots and the Japanese and the Kentuckys and these whiskey, Appalachias, if you call them, around the world, that do whiskey. Same goes for cannabis. I think cannabis, or California, the biggest brand of cannabis in the world is California.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those brands, much like how perfume is French and chocolate is Belgian,
Champagne.
French it's going to go, Jungle Boy. A lot of these guys will probably Cookie. A lot of these brands, Stizzy, will probably be those, those key benchmarks that'll be around hopefully for a long time. And there's a lot of great up and comers that are building names that are going to be there just as well.
I like what you said. Nature is a platform for, would you say creatives or for artists?
Yeah,
when you're thinking of doing something, because obviously you want to take that and work with a bunch of different people on different ideas. What are you looking for in a person that you guys collab with? Because I know a bunch of brands and a bunch of black market guys that want to get white market, or a bunch of brands that have a huge following that just want to, so I'm for those guys like
after being through learning so much, a lot of tribal knowledge since the beginning, I would say the two main things, and we're just building this out right now at Natura, which is exciting, but it's like a little, I don't want to say late to the party, but it's just happening now, is sales and marketing. Like, we're a factory. We manufacture, we grow. It's taken us over a year to really get our flower to a point that we're proud to share it and show it with the world. It was a lot to do. It was a lot of work to really turn just whatever plants we could get from any nurseries at that day one to rush to get plants in, to having a focus and a strategy and growing for certain people or brands and certain varieties and getting them to a point where we have a big wholesale department, like to get it to a point where the numbers are good and we're getting good, return on our cultivation, and the industry starts talking about your product being like something that, right now a lot of people don't know, but we're powering Natura's flower powers a lot of, brands, a lot of big wholesalers behind the scenes. And we like to keep it behind the scenes. A lot of people don't necessarily want to showcase that a big behemoth like Natura is growing for them. But we're having fun, really. We're powering. So I would say to get into Natura, it would really help if brands or personalities have sales and marketing, have a creative, have a lot of that on their side that they can bring to the table. It's not something that, especially in the past, we're just, getting our creative director. We're just, building. I'm literally building a sales team as we speak. I got some great people right now, but we're always looking for amazing people to help push these platforms, these Fidels, the Jelly Wizards, the D's, the Pistol Point. We work with Heisman, Ricky Williams and his team. Ricky's an amazing. I used to watch him play at Texas, and his story is amazing. And there's just a lot. Like, I like to call Natura the United Nations of cannabis. And if a lot of people don't know, the United Nations, is the whole world, but it's actually located in New York City. And the United Nations is located in New York City on a strip of land that is owned by the United Nations. It's a strip of land that, while no one from North Korea, no one from some of these countries like Afghanistan, Taliban, all these, countries can come to America on a visa. If you have a seat at the UN, you can come into New York for your meeting, do the UN, council, whatever, and then you have to go home. You can't, for the most part, if they're not like a recognized, somebody that, especially like Russia, all these, but they're still coming to New York to the UN. In that building, certain times a year, you have everyone seated around the table. When they're around the table, for the most part, everyone's head is in the same place. Everyone's mind is in the same place. We're all trying to better humanity. We're all trying to represent everyone, bridge everyone. While some of us might be at war, while some of us might not get along, while some of us come from completely different walks of life, we can get together in that setting. Natura, that's what we envision. It's something bigger than a lot of us. It's a place that, 3 years ago to tell brands that they're going to work together in the same place. No way. You kidding me? I think I'm going to give you genetics and they're going to be in the same, or you think I'm going to make a gummy in the same kitchen as them? And no way.
Hash makers.
I'm going to build my own facility, my own place, So this goes against all of that. Like the Natura goes against all that. So it's such an insane dynamic. The United Nations were, one of my visions is like you would drive by in like 2-3 years, because we're still not completely finished. We have a 2-tier indoor we're going to start building soon, so we can have both the indoor and the mixed light. The mixed light has almost 4,700 lights at the facility, and we built them ourselves with the lighting team in China. Deconstructed a couple lights, put them together. We have a great team on the lighting. So all the lights are like our specific technology. CO2, we dump CO2. They're all closed bays, so we can put a lot of CO2 into the bays.
Temperature and humidity controlled,
so
greenhouse, high-end greenhouse.
I think there's over like $4.5 million of concrete.
Beautiful.
Just concrete. You know what I mean? Just all these things that like people are like, why concrete? Concrete keeps the temperatures from fluctuating. And what happens when you can control the temperatures a lot more, you have less problems with mold and humidity, and you can keep a lot of the good in and whatnot. So the facility itself is state of the art. It's a place that I knew I had to be a part of. And what I was going to get to is I would love to see a place where in the UN, and next time you guys are in New York, try and go check it out. The on the street, it's all flags. It's all the flags of all the nations. And it's just crazy. It's so many nations in the world. That was almost a vision I had, was like, California, US flag, California flag. And then literally the flags of all of the partners and the brands and the people, like whoever has a flag or whoever we're working with as a partner in the place. It's like I used to go to JCC's, Jewish Community Centers, as kids, but even in the JCC, there would be like Jerry Rice, all the brothers from Palo Alto would come in and play basketball, or you didn't have to be Jewish. Like we had really good, like the pools, the Tongans would come from San Mateo and come swim. Like it was a community center where obviously it was built by, Jews for Jews. We're open. We're only 1% of the world. So Jews are pretty, after what happened to us in the Holocaust, we're trying to be open. So I saw a lot of those values in Natura. My dad's Israeli, but his first friends coming over were Palestinians. I was raised in a household where it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. You open your door to anyone. That's what the beauty of California is. California is the hodgepodge of so many amazing cultures and people that migrated here from so many places. That's what makes it so dynamic and such a force to be reckoned with. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, for the most part in my life. So,
especially now with federal legalization, this is the Mecca. Shit's going to really, this is where you're going to be able to see it really take off and birth, and you guys are at the forefront of that with multiple brands. I mean, this right here, this Thai, you would call it a Thai gummy or a Thai inspired gummy.
It's a Thai gummy. And what it really is it's nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Like I was a little kid where I'm from in the Bay Area, walking into Asian candy stores and buying Super Colas, buying White Rabbits, buying the little like red candies. We were buying the little Botan rice candies that you eat the paper. Like when I was 8, 9, 10, my friend Jimmy Saruki had Saruki Supermarket in Berlin, like Japanese supermarkets, or the Super Lemons and Super Colas. When I was in 6th grade, all the like Jimmy Ting, all these guys from Taiwan would have all this. So I was around all that stuff. And that is where D kind of came from, was that like bringing back nostalgia of walking down the candy aisle, especially in an Asian candy store, and bringing cannabis into the equation and having it go. You can do that. D is also proof that you can do something similar with a lot of ethnicities, a lot of different products from around the world. I have a couple, Japanese concepts in mind that are really cool with the packaging and whatnot. Even in the flower side, if you look at a lot of inspiration right now in flower, a lot of that comes from anime and different Japanese cartoons and all that kind of stuff. And you're seeing it a lot in the flower game with a lot of the bags, the fonts and whatnot. A lot of Japanese heavy. But Thailand is definitely the homage to a place that has that story of 20 years ago you're dying to now they're like have everything is like derived from leaf and seed, so it's all kind of gimmicky a little bit, but it's all breaking the stigma. Now they have like these cannabis stores in Bangkok that are selling basically like the chronic candy that we used to have here that don't get you high, don't even have CBD, they just taste like cannabis.
Yeah,
but it's really just opening the doors.
In a few years, you'll be able to fly to Bangkok or to Thailand and buy an eighth and smoke it.
Yep. Or bring your own
at a shop. Yeah. Or bring your own. Yeah, exactly.
Or bring your own, which is kind of how it should be. Medicine, we don't really, if we're on pharmaceutical medicine, medication, for the most part, you're not going to another country and filling your prescription. Maybe you're buying it like, cause they don't require a prescription and you're getting it like that. And even at that, you don't know if the pharmacies are real and whatnot. But you don't trust. Same is probably gonna be with cannabis. You might not trust maybe the quality of whatever you're going to. Your conditions might require super clean cannabis compared to someone else that can smoke some, whatever spray. You have a lung problem, so it's important to have the cleanest products possible. And sometimes it's comes from just where yourself.
But big shout out for you. I know we talk about it a lot. We're huge supporters of Fidel's here at First Smoke of the Day. Pat Gods and myself, we show up at all the pop-ups. But for you to be able to put some of these brands on, I mean, and for you to have the creativity that you guys have, and for you to be able to do this with such a big amount of money behind you, just speaks to how progressive you are and how awesome your brand is. I'm going to be honest, because most people, when they get that much money behind them and that much effort, it gets very streamlined. They put out their own product. They don't want to work with, you guys are such a platform. We love it, man. And we love what you're doing for these brands and for cannabis alone. You're transitioning brands that sometimes couldn't do it themselves because of the huge hurdles California put in front of small cultivators or small hatch makers or small edibles guys, Jelly Wizard, Fidel's. I mean, and I know a bunch are coming, so.
Yeah, no, it's just
big shout out to you.
Thank you, appreciate it, and it's great to be recognized, and it's just the beginning because we're just getting started right now. It took us a long time to get everything dialed in. We still haven't even built out the indoor fully. We got a lot just starting, and it's exciting, and just stay tuned for the ride. We're focused in California. We're not thinking about like going all over the world and opening a Natura in every state and whatnot. We're really wanting to do California right, really want to do and finish what we built and do it properly and with purpose. But expect us to do other projects and expect to hear more, about us and our brands over the next, call it 2 to 4 years. Cause Ori is not one to just stop at one little thing. And he's got his foot to the gas. We all do. And it's an amazing crew that we have. I have the luxury of, showing face and making all these things look good and whatnot, but it's an amazing team of people behind me that are hustling every day. Monday to Sunday, people are showing up. Plants don't take any days off. There's no like taking a weekend off. Someone's got to be there every day. From the security to the janitor to the cultivator to the hash washer to the roller to the administrator to everyone plays a part. And I think that's the testament to our success is appreciating everyone, acknowledging everyone, and knowing that it's not just like 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 of us that are really like making everything happen, because it's such a team effort and so many lanes. We're like an octopus, with so many arms, and without that head kind of to keep it all together, the arms just flop around, so I can't wait to have you guys over to really show you guys a little bit more of what we do, because it really is an amazing place that is a dedication to the plant. It's dedicated to the plant and bringing out all her glory, and positively affecting millions of lives through what we make.
Natura.
Yeah.
Shit.
Natura,
if you don't
man, for
know,
real.
now you do know.
For real. You just-
Platform for brands, transitioning people that couldn't get transitioned with millions of dollars. I mean, and it expands from here. I can't wait to see the hash makers, the seed brand. I'm sure you guys got a lot of stuffs in the works right now.
We
I
just
already
helped
know.
Fidel close. We're our cookies and Nature actually help with with Burn. Burn's helping us also behind the scenes at Nature. With Cookies Thailand, Nature is a part of that, and then the Pure Sativa. Shout out to Amit and Attitude and all the they already started carrying Fidel's.
When
So
do those shirts drop?
The shirts, so many
I want
people
one
have
of
asked
those.
about the shirts. I think there's like 6 or 7 of them just for the mock-ups to promote it. The opening of Cookies Bangkok is in August. I think we even convinced Big Burn to come out, and I mean it's crazy the interest over there. You have some of the biggest musicians, mostly hip hop, that want to perform, that want Burn to they own clubs and whatnot in Phuket and Bangkok, want Burn to perform with them on stage. You have the head of Vans Thailand, it's in the skate park. So they want to all come skate. I was with Serge and last night, even Serge with Fidelity and Gas No Breaks, and he wants to bring his deck and come skate. I mean, like so many people want to just come skate and hang out, and it's going to be a movie. It's going to be a movie, and the impact is going to be crazy. A lot of companies are from Red Bull was made by a Thai guy and an Austrian guy, and Red Bull comes in a can in Asia, or a little glass jar in Asia, and in a can in Europe and the world. But that was a joint venture between a Thai. So there's a lot of big things, and I think Cookies, the merch, you could never get a Puffco, you could never get a Santa Cruz shredder, you could never get a rolling tray, you could never get Vibes rolling paper. You can get like 3 or 4 so they're lacking in so many things that need to come, that it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be you're going to see a lot of cannabis stigma break in Thailand, and people just start embracing this plant like very few other. They have a Mr. Weed. They have like a puppet, like a guy, like you go to a ballpark and you see someone put the whole costume on. Thailand has an official Mr. Weed costume guy that goes to events, and it's a leaf. The prime minister will be there. The deputy prime minister, I met Tom introduced me, and I was able to meet Anutin, who's the deputy prime minister, and he's the head of the minister of health, one of the most influential forces with cannabis in Thailand. Gave me a pen from his pocket. I still have it, and it's a green pen with a little Mr. Weed
Love
leaf
it.
on it. The government is handing out. So we don't even have that in America for the most part. They're really embracing this plant. It's fun to see. Thai people are happy and smiley, and really, really great culture. So cannabis is going to be a great place for Canada. The food and the beach and all the
That's what I'm looking
amazing
for.
scenery
Yeah.
and whatnot. Cannabis belongs for sure.
I'm looking forward to it. All 3 of us sitting on the
Yep.
beach smoking some cookies joint in Thailand.
August. Let's shoot for
Man,
August.
that's what the future holds. And big shout out Natura, man.
Yeah, man, for real. Everything.
Absolute.
Hell of a journey, hell of a story, for real. You got a
Yeah.
lot going on, a lot of accolades, and just dope hearing about all of it, especially looking forward to the future in August. Cookies Thailand. Crazy. That's amazing. I haven't been yet. I know he hasn't been yet.
I can't wait for Natura. Honestly.
We're ready to hit the scene, man, for real. We're ready to see it.
Can't wait to show you guys around. One of my influences was Anthony Bourdain. If you follow me on Instagram, there was a big period in my life where I spent all my personal money on traveling, and I just was and I've come from the food family, my father, the restaurant and I live for, doesn't matter if it's the cheapest street eats or some Michelin high end. I want it all, and I want to experience it all. I want to sit on the ground. I want to sit dressed nice in the table. I want to experience every level. And there's nothing like that over there. You're gonna.
I can't wait.
I'm looking
man.
forward to it. I'm gonna beach it up, man. Going through the jungle.
You're on the street.
Coming
I
through.
love it.
Definitely
Nah.
don't smoke in the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've been caught in Jamaica and in Mexico. It's probably going to be like that. I have friends friend just got caught in Colombia a couple months ago. It's easy money for police officers. They'll catch you. They'll shake you up. They'll take your money. They'll make you feel like you're going to jail usually, and you usually won't go to jail. So
Don't
one
do it.
word of advice: if you are going to get, try to smoke hash or something a little bit more discreet, capsules, stuff like that, or just be really discreet. Even in these places like Thailand and even Cambodia that have happy herb pizza joints and all this stuff, like don't just flaunt things like you're in LA or in California where you can just smoke openly. I don't want to see people get in trouble. So it's still have to be
Disclaimer.
careful.
Put the disclaimer out there.
Yeah, big disclaimer.
With
Be
the
careful.
amount of business, one last thing I know before we close, I have one question because this is something hard for the amount of business and the amount of leases and the amount of stuff you've been able to accomplish. Is there a piece of advice you'd give to like a young business guy who's trying to get into cannabis or someone who's trying to get a lease or get a shop or trying to, just something to.
The toughest thing is when you have a dream or a vision and you don't have the money, especially right now, it's hard, So if you have partners or you need a partner to make your dream become a reality, vet them, make sure that they're the right people, even if it's family members, make sure that you really want to do work with family, make sure the dynamic is there, but do what makes you happy. And do what have a vision, have a plan. Don't just play roulette, playing every number on the board. Try to be calculated and play as few numbers as possible. Kind of focus. Don't just throw things on the wall and see what sticks always. But just have fun and do what you like to do. And usually you'll make it work or you'll make money. Don't try to not be yourself. Don't try to do what the other people are doing because it looks cool, or you think that it works. Don't try to think things work. If you're thinking things work and you don't know how to make them work and you don't have a good team around you, take a breather, study, build that team, find like-minded individuals, and then execute. But too many of us jumped into things or just needed FOMO. FOMO is like a real big thing in cannabis. Your fear of missing out and what the other guys are doing. And not a lot of people just put their head down and ignore the fuzz and just go stick in their lane and do what they want. And a lot of the great guys that you guys have had on here, that's the one common trait. If you look at everyone, you analyze everyone that's been on your show, everyone's put their head down, focused on what they're doing, and executing, and not just talk. Talk is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my, you guys are, you guys
gotta
have
walk the walk.
you
Josh
guys
from
are done.
Natura putting in the works from day one. We can see the results. Holy shit.
You
Thank
gotta
you,
walk
guys.
the walk, man. I like that for real. It's good advice to any young entrepreneur, especially getting in this space. What you guys are doing is amazing. We're excited for the future.
Thank you guys.
Josh from Natura.
Thanks for
Episode
having me.
44. It's first smoke of the day. We're out. Peace.
Thank you, everyone. Much love.
What's up? I want to take a second to talk about Grow Generation, the largest hydroponic retailer in the country. Over 60 stores nationwide. Go to growgeneration.com and enter in the code FIRSTSMOKE. Become a part of the family. Let's go where the pros go to grow.
Hey, calling all breeders and growers to the world's largest online seed bank, NeptuneSeedBank.com. Check out this. I got goodies from all the best breeders in the market. To go here and change your game in your garden, go to NeptuneSeedBank.com. You can get Blackleaf and you can get all the best breeders in the game. NeptuneSeedBank.com. First smoke of the day sent you.
Let's talk about Athena, one of the #1 nutrient companies in the world. Athena Nutrients. Blackleaf, tell them how you use IPM in your garden.
Athena IPM, one of the best products out right now for IPM management. This product passed testing for legal facilities and is what I use in my garden. Blackleaf approved, Athena IPM.
This product and all other products, AthenaAG.com. Go check them out. Appreciate you guys.
Yo, welcome to the Diamond Mine. The DiamondMine.LA, California source for boutique genetics. Powered by yours truly, Blackleaf. And you know what that means? That means I'm bringing my best genetics into this. I'm bringing stuff I've been hiding, harboring away, stuff I haven't wanted to let out. We're bringing all that into the diamondmine.la, and we're going to offer that to California. Go on our website, hit the newsletter, and see if you can rock with us. Get on board with some of our genetics and change your garden. The diamondmine.la, powered by Blackleaf.
We're here holding Power SI, and we want to talk a little bit about what this can do for your garden.
It's a game-changing product I use in my garden. Foliar, res feeds. I recommend it to all growers. This is a game changer.
Go to Power SI and enter in the code FIRSTSMOKE to get a discount. Yo, we're right here at TLC Collective, home of the Jungle Boys, where they've been playing with fire since 2006, right here in Los Angeles, California. It's at Jungle Boys on all social media, jungleboys.com, and if you want to see for yourself, come right here to TLC Collective, man. Let's check it out.